Prime Minister is back home, but all of that developments and big developments, rather, that has now taken place as far as the G7 summit on the sidelines of that in France. With more than 100 days of the war and the newly signed peace deal between US and Iran, a prediction from Donald Trump that made in 2020 seems to be coming back in focus. He said, and I quote, that Iran never wins a war, but they never lose a negotiation. And when it was asked who said that, then that came in from President Trump. Now, that seems to be the very heart of a growing global debate. Even though the fighting has stopped, but the big question is who gave up first and on what accounts? Because we have a breaking news coming in exactly if those objectives that the United States and Israel jointly launched when it comes to the strikes on Iran back on the 28th of February, have those objectives in the first place been achieved? Let's get you a breaking update. So a formal signing ceremony that was expected to take place in Switzerland today has, according to reports, been delayed after US Vice President JD Vance postponed his planned trip for the talks on the next steps of the US-Iran agreement that is aimed to ending the conflict in the Middle East. So according to the White House statement, JD Vance, who had previously traveled for the first round of negotiations to Islamabad, however, currently what is being said will not be departing for Switzerland for the scheduled round of discussions, with the officials saying that the arrangements for the technical negotiations are still being finalized. So this is something where we have seen a little bit of a back and forth as far as the Prime Minister of Pakistan, who was also expected to be present in Switzerland. He also has called off his visit previously, as far as his information is concerned, where he was relaying the message of Iran and US peace deal, and formally in person. This deal was expected to be signed when it comes to the leaders representing both the US and the Iranian side. But it seems that these final negotiations that are still being worked out, and till the time what we are looking at, because initially in Versailles, President Trump already signed the peace deal, and remotely, right from President Pezeshkian of Iran, you can see him holding the peace deal in the paper there with Donald Trump's signature that can be clearly seen. So this is how officially, when it comes to the peace deal that has been signed between the two sides. But when it comes to the in-person signing of the deal, that is yet to happen. It was being initially said that on the 19th, which is today, the deal in person would have been signed today in Switzerland with the presence of the Iranian and also the US and the Pakistani side, which has been playing the role of a negotiator here. Let's connect with Srinjoy on this. So Srinjoy, good morning. It seems that there is a 14-point MOU, but the details behind the 14-point MOU, that has all now been laid bare by Vice President JD Vance, although it seems that he is not reaching Switzerland as of now.
Yes, President Trump has already signed it, as you rightly said. So has President Pezeshkian. So the deal is in place. Now it's the question of getting the in-person thing done. Now, if there is a question or two that has to be sorted out, well and good. The important thing is that the first two things that could have been done after the deal was signed are already happening. First, the naval blockade of the Iranian ports by the American Navy has ended or is ending. That's a big forward movement. The other thing is the Strait of Hormuz. That's opening as well. Now, if that has happened, it actually benefits not just Iran and the United States and the Gulf areas, it benefits the whole world, because now oil will begin to move, as will natural gas. So the beneficiaries are Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, and all these countries. And Qatar has played a very significant role in these peace negotiations. That should not be forgotten. The other beneficiaries are the importers, like China. 90% of Iran's oil went to China, and also Japan and South Korea, and of course India. All these countries, that's like roughly half the world,
yes,
will heave a sigh of relief. So this will benefit the two warring countries, the Gulf, and
but the broader
much
contours
of
of this peace deal or this 14-point memoranda is expected to be, laid bare. and to understand it further in detail, because there are still questions being raised. Has really had, Iran had the upper hand as far as when it comes to the signing of the peace deal is concerned, because the Iranian leadership has been presenting their side of the story. Srinjoy continues to be with us. We talk about as far as the Iranian supreme leader is concerned. Well, till now, he hasn't made any formal physical appearance yet, but this is now coming across as far as Mojtaba Khamenei and his wording, his carefully worded message to the Iranian people, because Khamenei has now confirmed that he personally approved the agreement after receiving assurances from the Iranian president and the security establishment that Iran's rights in the so-called resistant front would be protected. But the message also carries a clear warning for Washington, as Mojtaba Khamenei says that the future talks with the United States does not mean that Iran has accepted the American position, and has insisted that Tehran will not give in if the US makes what it calls as excessive demands. He's also been taking a swipe at President Trump, claiming that it was the American president who used to be available, a leverage push that they have taken across the finish line. So this is something which Mojtaba Khamenei, Srinjoy, because if we take a look exactly right from the 28th of February till about now, till the deal has been signed, it seems that only initial setbacks is something which Iran has faced. And then how did it turn the situation, to its own advantage? We've seen that happening. The attacks on the Gulf regions, that was not expected. Then when it comes to weaponizing the Strait of Hormuz and closing it shut, that has affected the whole world because of it. Does Iran have the upper hand as far as this deal that has been signed?
There are two things that have to be worked out. Yes, Iran has benefited in some ways because Iran believes that the sanctions will be lifted. If the sanctions are lifted, it helps Iran a lot. The other thing which will benefit Iran is if the tranches of money begin coming in. This is Iranian money held by the Western banks. If they start coming in and they go into billions of dollars, then it helps Iran. But there are two things which are not clear as yet. These 400 plus kilos of enriched uranium that Iran has. Who holds on to it in the future? Does Iran hold on to it? Do the Americans get it? Does IAEA get it? Does a fourth party get it? That is not clear as yet. Secondly, this $300 billion, this new Marshall Plan that is being talked about. Now, it's hard to see President Trump as George Marshall, the former American Secretary of State, who actually planned this for the return to prosperity of Western Europe after World War II. Now, do you see that happening vis-a-vis Iran? President Trump has dismissed it as fake news in the past, but it's mentioned in the 14-point MOU. So how does $300 billion get to Iran?
And who's going to pay for it? Because Vice President Vance says that Tehran is not getting a penny from the United States. Will the Gulf nations pay for it after, being at the receiving end of Iranian strikes? And Iran very well has managed to even include Lebanon. And as far as the resistance front is also concerned, so a shield and the cover, this seems that Iran has gotten its way as far as the signing of the deal is concerned. Please to stay on with us, Srinjoy, because let's speak of what President Trump and his administration has been saying. Because hours after the US and Iran formally signed the peace deal, President Donald Trump has issued a fresh statement backing the deal and expressing hope, where he's claimed that the deal has boosted market confidence with oil prices. And he's saying that the world needs to thank President Trump for this, because the markets have been cheering. And when it comes to the stocks that have been climbing and the prices of Brent crude that has now been falling, he said that his country remains committed to peace and requested all sides to stay committed to the negotiation process. And in a significant remark, he says that he expects the complete ceasefire also on the Lebanese front. So that means a straight out message that is also going on to Israel and also Prime Minister Netanyahu, because despite this, peace deal being signed, Israel had continued to bombard southern Lebanon, which is said to be the hub for Hezbollah. Now, amid reports of possible $300 billion relief package for Iran after the deal, President Trump and his administration has made it clear on its stance, saying that it remains unchanged towards Tehran. So Vice President Vance says that Iran will not receive any sanctions release until and unless it follows the terms of the newly signed agreement. JD Vance says and added that the United States will continue to put maximum economic pressure on Iran until it meets all of its commitments.
Well, number one, they would have to get a lot of money in order to rebuild their nuclear program. You're talking about billions and billions of nuclear infrastructure that the United States destroyed. In order for them to rebuild that program, they would have to get a lot of money. And we have them in an economic chokehold right now that we're not going to release until they fundamentally change their behavior. What would that look like? That would mean a real inspections regime. That would mean a real enforcement regime. As the MOU contemplates, that would mean the destruction of their enriched stockpile. All of these things are the sorts of steps you're going to take if you're serious about ending your nuclear weapons program. And that, again, is why I go back to this fundamental trade that's built into the deal. They need money to do anything. Their economy is in absolute dire straits. But in order for them to get any integration into the world economy, they're going to have to show us and verify for us.
Now let's talk about amid the growing unease over US-Iran peace memorandum of understanding. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, however, has issued a fresh warning to Lebanon, saying that Israel is not part of this MOU and unless, it is not bound by when it comes to the promises that has been made between the two sides, stressing that Israel will continue to push back any perceived threats and remains focused on what he has described as the Lebanon challenge.
עם ישראל חזר הביתה, ועם ישראל יישאר כאן לנצח, כי זו ארצנו, היא שלנו.
Well, Srinjoy, where is Israel placed in all of this? Because, yes, US and Israel did jointly launch strikes on Iran, but now Iran and US have a peace deal. So where does it leave Israel with? And what does it leave Israel with?
Lebanon is mentioned in the peace deal. That point is there in the MOU. But the Prime Minister of Israel is making it very clear that he believes that the problem still exists vis-a-vis the Hezbollah. Now, it must be said that there is no private military. I'm not referring to militaries that are controlled, that are part of a government. I'm referring to a private military. It has been said in the past that there is no private military as powerful, as well equipped, and as well trained as the Hezbollah. Of course, its abilities have been degraded in the fighting with Israel.
Yes.
But this is how it was once perceived.
So it seems
Now
that Prime Minister of Israel remains defiant, saying that we are not a party to this peace deal, and if there is a threat, existential threat for Israel, then they will continue to remove and challenge that. And this is coming in, if it threatens the very peace deal, because Iran has already warned that many misadventure on part of the US side or any of the Israeli side, then they, would be dealt with appropriately. Thank you very much, Srinjoy. Appreciate you joining us here on the broadcast. Well, those are the updates that we are picking up on this peace deal. We'll be joining you on the other side as we also get you more exclusive conversations lined up.